And welcome to the OBX Wave Report for December 31st, New Year's Eve, last day of 2022. And I am here with my co-wave reporter here, Crow, who is not at all interested in waves, but is instead just interested in cuddling, which is fine on this stormy day. Yesterday, I did get out to the beaches and put on my 2 millimeter wetsuit and paddled out at Jeanette's Pier and subsequently froze my brain. But it was fun still. Got a little writing in. I haven't gotten enough writing in to give you guys a full review of the Lost Rocket Redux. I keep promising I'm going to provide a review of it, and yeah, I'll get there. I'll get there eventually. We are in the process of, building up. We are not a fully fledged OBX wave report yet, but we are improving. We are learning the tricks down here. We are learning the ropes, and we're getting into it. But today on New Year's Eve for the OBX wave report, where we discuss all things waves, weather, and climate, and apparently PERS as well. Um, We are experiencing stormy conditions here today. It's cloudy, it's rainy. We have strong winds coming in from the south in the range of about 20 to 30 miles per hour. So not gale force or technically yet in the near gale force range, but definitely strong winds. And looking at the satellite shot from NOAA, we can see just this massive morass of clouds over the US East, underneath which are heavy rainstorms, uh, misty, foggy conditions. This impulse swept in out of the west and has tapped into some Gulf moisture and Atlantic moisture, and it's just raining all up and down the US East Coast pretty much. And it's out here in the Outer Banks, it's windy and the waves are rising. The surf conditions are getting rougher and more choppy. And as you can see in the satellite picture, you really can't see any landforms except for once you get into Canada or down to the extreme southern tip of Florida. So the US East Coast is just blanketed in stormy weather today, and the Outer Banks are no exception. Looking at the infrared satellite shot, we see the impulse here, the frontal boundary, the storms firing off both over the Gulf of Mexico and running in through Georgia, the Carolinas, Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. So just your classic frontal boundary sweeping in here. There is a low pressure system out here over Ohio as well associated with this front. According to the weather forecast, this stormy condition is not going to persist for too long. It's going to sweep on through either late today or early tomorrow, but for now, little bit of stormy conditions for the Outer Banks. Looking at wave heights, they have kicked up in the near shore and the just offshore environment, ranging from about 6 to 8 feet off the Outer Banks. Some of these swells are translating in toward the local shores with wave heights ranging from 2 to 8 feet up and down the beaches. And we're going to get into some local reports for you right about now. So looking at our local stations, let's see here. Let's get our Google map fired up. And we're going to start out at Jeanette's Pier as we usually do. And the waves at Jeanette's Pier are rapidly building with a swell coming in from the south. Waves are in the range of 2 to 5 feet with a 4.5 foot primary swell coming in at about 7 seconds. And then a windblown chop mostly coming in for the secondary swell at 10 seconds. Winds are not as strong here at Jeanette's Pier as they are further south. So winds out of the south-southwest at 15 miles per hour. And this is an offshore flow. Likely choppy and blown out conditions there. Air temperature is 59 degrees Fahrenheit with the ocean water temperature at 54. I was out surfing at Jeanette's Pier yesterday, and the local reading at the pier was actually lower than what I'm getting here from the official reading. It was actually a 49 degree Fahrenheit, 48 or 49 degree Fahrenheit reading. I'm not certain if that's correct. It's possible that that sensor was a little bit off, but nonetheless, it did feel very cold in my wetsuit and I did freeze my brain. So I'm going to need to get a hood, gloves, and booties. So that's, yeah, getting my surf gear up for cold weather conditions is project number 35 for me. But we're working on it. We're working on it all. And so air temperature is 59 degrees. Ocean water temperature is 54 degrees. Conditions are cloudy. It's rain with a light moderate to spurts of heavy rain there at Jeanette's Pier. And the expected high today is 63. Moving on down the coastline, we're going to get you guys a sample of various different positional beaches. This beach at Rodanthe that we're going to look at is facing more toward the east and less toward the northeast than Jeanette's Pier. And wave conditions at Rodanthe are a bit higher than they are at Jeanette's Pier, ranging from 3 to 6 feet, with around 6 feet for the primary swell coming in at 7 seconds, and that secondary swell at Rodanthe is also coming in at 10 seconds. Winds at Rodanthe are much stronger at 28 miles per hour coming in from the south, which is a cross-shore wind rather than an offshore wind. Air temperature, according to the the beach reading that I got at the pier, is 70 degrees Fahrenheit. This is considerably above the National Weather Service reading at 63. So we'll say mid 60s to possibly 70 down there at Rodanthe. The ocean water temperature is 62 degrees Fahrenheit, and the expected high for today is probably in the range of 65 to 70 degrees. We'll see. And the weather conditions there are rainy and windy with strong cross-shore winds. I do want to give you a south-facing beach sample for our wave report today. So we're going to go on down 12, take that right-hand turn at Buxton and go across Hatteras Island to the Frisco beaches. And so we're going to zoom in on Frisco here with its broken up pier. Now, with very strong southerly winds coming in at 26 miles per hour, this is an onshore flow. And that is driving waves onshore here at Frisco in the range of 4 to 8 feet. So much higher surf conditions here at Frisco than on the east-facing beaches with that strong southerly flow blowing in those higher waves and swells. The air temperature is 60. The primary swell is also coming in at 7 seconds. Pretty much all up and down the beaches here, the primary swell is coming in at 7 seconds. So pretty predictable swell there. Air temperature at present is 69 degrees Fahrenheit. The ocean water temperature is 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Ocean water temperatures maintaining in the mid 60s here for most of Hatteras Island. So quite a bit warmer than further north, in about 10 degrees, fully 10 degrees warmer down here at Frisco than officially at Jeanette's Pier. The weather conditions at present are rainy and windy with those strong southerly winds at 26 miles per hour. And the predicted high temperature is in the range of 65 to 70 as well, with those strong southerly winds coming in onshore. With those squally conditions, looking at the National Weather Service map, we do see the precipitation and stormy weather in association with the front draped across the eastern US and the Gulf of Mexico, tapping in energy from those warmer than normal surface waters. We do see the low just south and east of the Great Lakes here that is anchoring the frontal boundary. And over the next day or so, we expect this front to just go ahead and sweep on off. So by the new year, the frontal boundary will be offshore and mostly a distant memory, and we'll have improving conditions for the outer banks. Although behind the front, we are not likely to see much of a drop in temperature, so air temperatures are expected to remain pretty warm tomorrow. And overall, looks like a relatively pleasant day at the beach with decent swells as well. So conditions there are conditions across the Outer Banks are likely to improve. For the US West, we have another system coming in, sweeping in with heavy rains across central and southern California and into the Rocky Mountains with snows in the higher elevations and rain in the lower elevations. And to the northwest, we have another impulse, a little bit of an Alberta clipper sweeping in across the Great Lakes here, mainly sticking to the far northern regions. And then as we get into January the 2nd, the incoming coastal low in California shifts to the central US and begins to tap some Gulf moisture and then gets itself organized. And we're going to look a little bit more about at this system in a different model run later on in our wave report. I do keep tabs on the Climate Prediction Center longer term forecast in the 8 to 14 day horizon. And consistently, temperatures for the Outer Banks are predicted to be above normal for the 8 to 14 day horizon. And precipitation and storm events are also predicted to be above normal, though nothing too extreme in these longer term forecasts. It is worth noting that temperatures throughout the central US and the northern tier of the eastern half of the US are expected to be considerably above normal, and that stormy conditions with somewhat above normal temperatures are predicted for the US West Coast, with some extreme weather firing in here through the central US. Looking at the jet stream, and let me go ahead and update. Yep, we are updated. Looking at the jet stream, we have a trough digging in across the eastern portion of the US in association with that frontal boundary. And we have another trough out here in the central North Atlantic associated with a stormy region, which has been persistently stormy across the North Atlantic. Looking at the larger wave model for the North Atlantic, we have higher surf for the East Coast in association with the frontal boundary, with a near offshore conditions in the range of about 7 to 8 feet, dipping down to around 5 to 6 feet off of Florida, and then 5 to 6 feet for the Bahamas, and then for the Northern Caribbean, 6 to 7 feet. The stormy zone just off of Europe here is producing very large significant wave heights in the range of 20 feet offshore, running into coastal France at 25 feet in the near offshore environment, and coastal Spain and Portugal in the range of 15 to 20 feet in the near offshore environment. Very stormy conditions still dominating across this portion of the North Atlantic. And just to show you a little bit of wind action here, around another low pressure system, we have a gale force or near gale force storm coming in here just off of Europe. Yep, so that's a gale right there that's kicking up those waves off of France, Spain, and Portugal. Pretty potent system, and it's worth noting that we have a daisy chain of lows running here from off of Europe to just west of Iceland to east of Greenland, with this deep trough creating a very stormy zone here between the European continent, Greenland, and the Arctic zone as well. And this might be something to continue to watch for storminess for the North Atlantic, as the storm zone has seemed to shift more toward the north. Toward the south here, we have a high pressure system just to the east of Bermuda, and then of course the frontal boundary draping in with the strong southerly winds in front and calmer conditions behind. For the US West, we have the storm system coming in off the ocean, and then another one apparently marching across the ocean toward the US West. Looking at, I do want to look at these longer term models, and I don't have an update. I'm going to need to get an update for you guys really quick here. Let's go ahead and get the North Atlantic region. And the model, I'm going to pick an older model because this model at present, the 12 Zulu for today is not updated, so we're going to take a look at the 0600 Zulu model. And here we have, you see that large ridge of high pressure over Bermuda and just to the east, dominating the western portion of the North Atlantic. And no, we do not want a sounding. And the storm system running through the east that's bringing the stormy weather for the Outer Banks. I'm going to go ahead and run this model so you guys can see what the predicted weather patterns are for the US East Coast and out here in the central North Atlantic. So by January 3rd, the frontal system that is producing stormy weather across the Outer Banks is but a distant memory as another storm system begins to form for the central US and tracks off to the north and east. This storm produces more intense weather for the northern and northeastern portion of the US as well as Canada, but leaves behind a remnant in the form of a remnant frontal boundary that remains draped over the southeast, producing stormy conditions through January 4th, January 5th, and begins to form a coastal low in the late January 5th timeframe, which runs into January 6th as the coastal low moves up the east coast very slowly into late January 6th and then early January 7th, finally gets its act together and then drags the frontal system off the US East Coast. But here off the Outer Banks, there appears to be a tendency for stormy conditions to attempt to remain. Yesterday in these models, storms continue to fire in the Outer Banks, but with this model, the storm system sweeps off across the off past the US East Coast and into the central North Atlantic as a high pressure system redevelops. And we don't get stormy conditions again until January 10th and the 11th, when another low pressure system is predicted to form across the southeast and generate some rather stormy conditions through January 10th, 11th, and 12th before transitioning just offshore in a kind of classic nor'easter type system that then tracks up the US East Coast and into New England. Again, we do have a tendency in the models for coastal lows and nor'easter type systems to form. So it's something that we do want to continue to watch. Although in the more recent models, these systems seem to be less organized or be moving offshore more rapidly. And in this case, it seems like that there would be less impact, particularly for storm systems forming in the January 4th to January 8th timeframe, but we'll keep an eye on it. And the ones running further out from January 10th to 14th are still too far out for the model predictions to provide us with accurate results. So that's the OBX wave report for you guys for today. We have stormy conditions here in the Outer Banks with larger surf. These conditions are expected to continue throughout most of the day before improving by late tonight and early tomorrow. And tomorrow is supposed to be a very nice day with some good wave conditions up and down the Outer Banks. Thank you for joining me on this December 31st edition of the OBX Wave Report. And please remember to do everything you can to help save our coastlines from the impacts of climate change driven by fossil fuel burning. I am Robert